All right, let's get it out of the way. I think Dunkirk might be Christopher Nolan's weakest movie. Dunkirk is written and directed by Christopher Nolan. The movie is a story of 400,000 troops being trapped, trying to escape France on the beach called Dunkirk. Look, let's get the positive stuff out of the way. This movie is beautiful. There are going to be 1,000 reviews of Dunkirk. I don't think any of them are going to accuse it of not looking good. It's shot primarily on IMAX, large format film. Christopher Nolan loves film as opposed to digital. Every review ever is going to talk about how great the dogfight sequences were. Christopher Nolan strapped 54-pound IMAX cameras to planes. Now, these cameras could only record for 3.5 minutes at a time. It's amazing, and I have to imagine very, very grueling for the people who were actually involved in making it. But it looks beautiful. The problem with Dunkirk lies in the story. Christopher Nolan loves playing with time. And what that means in this movie is that there are 3 separate acts that are all intermingled. The first is a week-long story of the men trying to leave the beach. The second is a day-long story of one of the boats crossing the English Channel to go to Dunkirk to rescue troops. The third is a 1-hour story of a pilot flying across to try to help defend from bombers. Christopher Nolan has a reputation for doing beautiful things with time, and I get it. Memento, fantastic. Almost all of his movies have flashbacks. They have some element of time being malleable or not as you would expect it to be. The problem here is that when you give equal time to a story that's a week long and an hour long, you end up missing out on something. The nature of these 3 stories intertwined means that as you get closer to the end of the movie, they come together more. In the beginning, it's very confusing to try to figure out how everything fits together. By the end of the movie, of course, it all makes sense. Unfortunately, that actually leads to one of the biggest problems with the storytelling in this movie. In a single hour, a plane comes across 3 bombers and 5 fighters. If that was told in a linear fashion, one pilot flying across the English Channel, coming across 3 bombers, 5 fighters, getting into several dogfights, that's an amazing amount of action for the amount of time that he was actually in the air. The problem is that when you mix 1 hour worth of flying and fighting into a week-long story, you get the sense that the week-long story was full of nothing. There's a bombing, and then there's nothing, and there's a boat, and then there's Tom Hardy flying, and then there's a boat, and then there's a bombing, and then there's a boat, and a plane, and then there's a fight, and then there's a boat. In Dunkirk, the nonlinear storytelling, I think, really works against the story. What we're left with is a movie where not a whole lot happens. I've seen a lot of praise for Hans Zimmer's score in this movie. He actually weaves a ticking clock into much of the score for this film. What this does is it creates a false sense of urgency. There's literally scenes where nothing is happening except a plane flying across the ocean, and there's this ticking clock going in the background. It's the presence of time and the fact that he's going to run out of fuel eventually, and every second counts. I understand that, but if you've seen my review for It Follows, I have the same issue with this as I did with It Follows. Having music that tells you how you're supposed to be feeling instead of having film that shows you why you should be feeling that way, it's a cheap trick. And it's a cheap trick here, just like it was in It Follows. If you take out the score and the ticking clock and the slight discordance that's seeking resolution in terms of music, what you're left with is a guy wearing a mask flying a plane across water. That's not terribly compelling film viewing. I had to go to the bathroom about halfway through Dunkirk, and I realized that the odds are I could get up, leave, go to the bathroom, come back, sit down, and nothing would have happened. And so I did it. I got up and I went to the bathroom, and I came back and I sat back down, and nothing had happened. Thematically, it's a story that could be very compelling. but it's told in such a way as to remove that. At the end of the day, the majority of my complaints about Dunkirk are exactly the same as my complaints about Michael Bay films. Too many characters, no character development, people running around doing vaguely military things while avoiding explosions. Does that make a compelling story? No, it doesn't. Without something to grab onto in the story, we're just watching images on a screen. And that's the biggest fault, I think, of Dunkirk. So how about you guys? Did any of you go see this movie in 70mm? I wanted to, but I ended up seeing it in my local theater, which is, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's my favorite theater ever. Picture screen, that's where it was. I didn't do a good job of centering the camera. I didn't realize until after I had left the theater. What's your favorite Christopher Nolan movie? Comment down below. Let me know what you think. I love hearing from you guys, and we'll have a discussion whether you think I'm right or wrong or just crazy. Let me know. Thank you very much for watching.